please rise and join me in pledging allegiance to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We'll move right on to the minutes of the of May's meeting, which has been distributed in the board members' packets. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
It's been moved. Any second?
I'll second it.
It's moved and seconded. Thank you. Any discussion, additions, deletions, corrections? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the minutes as submitted, say aye. Aye. Any contraries? The minutes are approved as submitted. I'm going to, the agenda that's in front of us is not exactly the correct agenda. We're going to move the recognition of Ms. Cardamone to the end of the meeting so we have a better opportunity for the photo op session and her recognition. So we'll do that. We're going to delete teen health issues for tonight and add the issue of Radnor residents keeping chickens in coops in their backyard to the agenda, which is not on there right now. With those corrections in the agenda and, of course, any other additions that other members of the board wish to make. I'll ask for Mr. Taltone to make his announcements and health officer's report.
Good afternoon. First, let me apologize for the mix-up in the agenda. That was my fault. Mr. Hazen did give me the corrected version, and I printed out the wrong one. In addition to my routine food safety inspections, we did 24 of those. The season, as far as the commercial swimming pools, opened up right before the holiday, and we opened up 29 commercial bathing places. We had 3 quality of life concerns that I particularly handled in several meetings. In your packet, you will find a letter from Mainline Health regarding the CT surgery. Also, you'll find in your packets Chapter 115, 2 separate ordinances. One is a version that was provided by Commissioner Schaefer, and the other one was a version provided by Dr. Donato. I shouldn't say a version, but one with some comments. And also there you'll find in your packet regarding this Chapter 115, a letter from PETA. In the packet, you're going to also find a letter, some communications regarding the West Nile virus for the 2013 year. Also, there's a application for residents to sign up for the pesticide hypersensitivity registry. And again, I keep those applications here at the township, at the display case out front there. And if anyone wants me to mail them a copy, because I want to make it as easy for residents to get on that list as they can call me at 610-688-5600, extension 148, or my email, which is ltalton@radnor, radnor.org. Also, you'll find the code red notification as it was in your packet last month. I put it back in this month so that you can get the notifications as far as code red. Mr. Chairman, so ends my report.
Thank you for that, Mr. Taltone. Any questions for Mr. Taltone? All right, we'll move on to old business. And as Mr. Taltone mentioned, in continuing with an item that we discussed at our meeting in May, the proposed consolidation of Bryn Mawr Hospital's cardiothoracic surgery capabilities into those of at Lankenau Medical Center. The Township manager, Mr. Zinkowski, has received a letter signed by the President and CEO of Mainline Health, John J. Lynch, and the President of Bryn Mawr Hospital, Andrea Gilbert. And in part, that letter says that their discussions have yielded the decision to postpone any resolutions regarding this issue until, at the earliest, the summer of 2014. So while discussions will continue, the people at Bryn Mawr Hospital and Mainline Health have indicated that they will not be making any decisions until the earliest point, the summer of 2014. Meanwhile, discussions, as I said, will continue. There's an effort to set up a meeting involving the president of Bryn Mawr Hospital and some folks from the township, including myself. That meeting date, as of the time I left home this afternoon, has not been firmly settled, but presumably it will be sometime next week. And I'll certainly keep everyone abreast of what is happening with regard to that, and we will pick up on any further discussions when we resume our meeting schedule in the fall of 2013. Any questions on that?
Mr. Hazen?
Yes.
I just wanted to mention that at the last commissioners meeting, I made a motion, and it was supported by the entire board, that the board has requested that on a much more relaxed schedule now, that the Board of Health does look into the issues with Bryn Mawr Hospital's proposal to close their CT unit, and then report back to the board with some recommendations.
Certainly. Thank you for that. Any other comments?
I would hope that we could have a public meeting. I know you're meeting next week, but during maybe one of our regular Board of Health meetings in October, say, before the holidays set in and before spring and things get too far along, that the community of Radnor could express their concern, if they so desire, about Bryn Mawr Hospital and the importance it is to our residents.
Certainly, all of our meetings will be open to the public, and we'll make sure that the advertisement for any such meeting mentions the fact that the public is welcome to comment on this important issue. Any other comments? Okay. A couple of years ago, actually more than that now, this Board of Health submitted to the Board of Commissioners proposed revisions to Chapter 115 of the Township's ordinances, and Chapter 115 deals with animal control issues. We've been in the process of reviewing that. The Board of Commissioners has reviewed that. And as Mr. Taltone mentioned, Ms. Schaefer, the President of the Board of Commissioners, forwarded a revision to us, which I think has general acceptance on the part of the board. Dr. Donato, who is on vacation and could not be with us this evening, did forward 3 comments, and those are in the annotated version of Chapter 115, which he sent to all of us via email. And I'll just take a minute to go over those. Under Article 2 of Chapter 115, which deals with rabies control, the one that the Board of Commissioners, Ms. Schaefer specifically forwarded to us, paragraph C, states within 10 days after any dog in the Township of Radnor becomes 3 months of age, the owner of any dog shall have such dog licensed by the appropriate agency of Delaware County. And the owner shall have such animal vaccinated against rabies by or under the supervision of a veterinarian. Dr. Donato's comment says that state law says rabies vaccine for dogs and cats should occur between 12 and 16 weeks of age. I don't believe we need to be stricter than that. That would be proposed change to the version that Ms. Schaefer sent on to us. Is there any comment on that proposed change? I think we have a general consensus that this board would approve that change to make it consistent with state law. Paragraph D of that same section says, within 10 days after any cat in the Township of Radnor becomes 3 months of age, the owner of such cat shall have such animal vaccinated against rabies by or under the supervision of a veterinarian. And the comment is basically the same because state law, again, is consistent with regard to dogs and cats. That is, state law requires the vaccine for dogs and cats between 12 and 16 weeks of age. Dr. Donato is indicating that we should be consistent with state law. And if there's agreement, consensus on that, we'll forward those comments to the commissioners. Paragraph 115-3, seizure of unlicensed and/or unvaccinated dogs and cats, redemption. Subparagraph A says, if a dog which does not have a current license and a dog or cat that does not have a current vaccination certificate is seized by a police officer or other authorized official of the Township of Radnor, such dog or cat shall be detained for a time period not exceeding 10 days. And it goes on for other things, but I think Dr. Donato's comment in the annotations indicates is with regard to the 10 days. It says currently the township has 7 days. So it's not clear, and Dr. Donato again is not here this evening, whether he is indicating that we should stick with the 7 days. And does anyone have any indication as to that?
No, the only thing that I can think of is that the first two, of course, are to put it in line with the Commonwealth's law, and this third one is to put it in line with the current township regulation. And I believe that, if I'm not mistaken, this whole document has been looked at by the township solicitor, and his comments also have been included in here.
Yeah, I believe it was changed to 10 days because it was felt that that would be easier for the person who lost the animal, because you'd be able to pick up weekends then.
Yeah, I have no problem with the 10 days. If we have a consensus on sticking with the 10 days, then we'll stay with that. I believe that was all of Dr. Donato's annotations. I didn't see any others in my email. So we will forward that, Commissioner Nagel, on to Commissioner Schaefer, and she will present it at a forthcoming Board of Commissioners meeting, I believe in July, she indicated to me. Okay. At previous meetings, we have discussed the request by certain township residents to enable residents of the Radnor Township to keep chickens in. Before I do that, I really should mention something for the general public, and it goes back to Chapter 115. Mr. Taltone and this board received a letter from People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, or PETA, as it is affectionately known. And I'll just read the first paragraph because it's relevant to our recommendations. We have received a copy of proposed changes to the Township's animal control ordinance that will be discussed at the Board of Health meeting on Monday, June 17, 2013. PETA strongly supports the proposed changes and hopes we can be of help. And that last sentence is in bold. They cite some of their reasons in the body of the letter. I think we have all received copies of that letter, so I won't go into them right now, but suffice it to say they are supportive of our recommendations. Mr. Taltone, do you happen to know if any of the Board of Commissioners have received this letter or to date? If not, I will transmit it with the rest of the Chapter 115 material.
I'm not sure.
I will do that
I don't know the
anyway.
answer to that.
I haven't received it yet, so I'm
okay.
assuming no one else has either.
Okay, thank you. I'll be sure to transmit that with the rest of the material. Okay, sorry for that interruption in the chicken the requests to allow Radnor Township residents to maintain chickens in coops in their backyards. I would like to ask Dr. Humphrey, who was a member of the subcommittee of this board, along with Doctors Leader and Donato and Dr. Saldivar as well, to walk us through what our recommendations are. Thank you, Dr. Humphrey.
Thank you, Mr. Hesem. As the chair mentioned, we met, we were actually tasked by the Board of Commissioners to evaluate various ordinances around the country and some of the literature and come up with some basically bullet points. This is not an ordinance. We only make recommendations to the Board of Commissioners, and they would be tasked with making the ordinance. Let me just go through, it's a single page of outline for an ordinance. Keeping chickens in Radnor Township. Definition, chicken, Gallus domesticus, pardon my Latin. It shall be unlawful for any person to remit or allow any domesticated chicken to run at large within Radnor Township. It shall be lawful for any person to keep, permit, or allow any domesticated chicken within Radnor Township under the following conditions. A, no more than 3 hens should be allowed for each single-family dwelling. No chicken shall be allowed in multifamily complexes, including duplexes. No roosters shall be allowed. There will be no slaughtering of chickens. Chickens must be kept in a secure enclosed constructed at least 2 feet, enclosure constructed at least 2 feet above the surface of the ground. One thing that we did discuss that's not on this list is the enclosures shall be located in rear yards. We all agreed that while maybe not a health issue, is sort of an aesthetic issue. Enclosures must be a minimum of 4 feet by 4 feet by 3 feet high. Enclosures must be situated at least 20 feet from the residence and the nearest neighbor's property line. Enclosures must be kept in a neat and sanitary condition at all times and must be cleaned on a regular basis so as to prevent offensive odors. Manure will be deposited in sealed garbage bags and regular trash. Manure will not be used for compost, fertilizing gardens, or plant food. Chicken feed will be kept in an animal-proof container. This is to prevent raccoons and other animals getting at it. Chicken and eggs will be used for private use only and will not be for sale. Persons wishing to keep chickens must obtain a permit from the township at the offices of Community Development, Radnor Township. A permit is issued after an inspection and approval of the site where the chickens will be housed, acknowledgement of receipt of a course in chicken husbandry, and we suggested $8 annual fee, but that's out of our purview. Persons may apply for more than 3 chickens with a special exception on being on agricultural land. A 1-year pilot program allowing chickens to be kept in Radnor Township will be reviewed by the Board of Health and reported to the Board of Commissioners to determine if the program should continue. Now again, these are just raw outlines. They're ideas and suggestions coming from our board and will be debated publicly with the Board of Commissioners. That ends my report.
Thank you again, Dr. Humphrey. Any comment from members of the board?
Since it's not under our jurisdiction, I would assume that the Board of Commissioners would have someone that would, I don't want to use the word police, but check in that pilot year so that if it is in fact a good, healthy situation, it continues, and if not, we would know about that. Is that correct?
I think that's a safe assumption.
I just wondered if you could say a little more about the manure and is there anything that could be done so that it could be used?
It's my understanding that the Department of Agriculture is looking into some guidelines on how long to compost this to ensure that you're not spreading salmonella or any other disease through fresh manure. I don't have a copy of those regulations. There are some guidances that are out. Guidance is sort of similar to a regulation that just hasn't the final authority. But I think those are issues that's going to be a contentious issue, I'm sure. But until we have those guidelines, we have to suggest that we avoid using fresh manure on gardens and for fertilizing vegetable growings. So I'm not sure how to really address that at this point, but there are some federal guidelines that are coming out addressing this.
Was there any discussion, Dr. Humphrey, of the possibility of those who get permits to keep chickens having to periodically renew those permits?
Well, I think we're suggesting this is a pilot program, and the renewal will be at the end of the year and perhaps annually after that. Again, we don't put a burden on Larry, but I think this is something that we'll have to look at the periodicity of how often these should be renewed. But certainly the first year is a pilot program.
Thank you.
I guess I did want to ask, Larry, do you have any comments or thoughts on this in terms of what this might mean for you?
Well, it certainly would increase my workload, but that's what I'm here to do. I would say that any permit should have a renewal period, at least annually. And with that should probably come an inspection. To not only that inspection, but unannounced inspections to make sure that, that it is being kept unsanitary. Because if you do just a renewal inspection, they know you're coming. And my thought is to, when it's something like this, to drop by unannounced, sort of like we do at restaurants, and when I show up, the inspection happens. So that would be my only comment.
Well, certainly the inspections, announced and or unannounced, should be part of the pilot program so that we could have a report of your findings when we review this at the end of the year.
I would hope, Mr. Chaltone, that the Board of Commissioners, with our support, if you need any further, I don't know how much you know about chickens, or how that all, if you've done this before, or what the other people that do these inspections. So whatever you need, I would hope that you would ask, and we would give your support, so we know, you know what you're looking for, that kind of thing.
I have every confidence that would occur.
Any further discussion, questions, comments?
Mr. Chairman, I just want to make clear to everybody, you've presented now the feelings of the Board of Health. about the health effects and the chickens are okay from that aspect. This obviously will have to go and be discussed probably by planning, because it's going to be in our codes that way too. So this is a really positive first step, and hopefully we can get it to them and get them thinking about it too.
Well, in terms of process, you brought up an interesting point. The material that Dr. Humphrey read, which contains our recommendations, as a matter of process, should that be submitted directly to planning, to the Board of Commissioners?
No, I'd send it back to the Community Development Department.
Community Development?
They're going to be the one that gets tasked with developing the ordinance, with planning.
John, at what point in time will this be published on? Will our recommendations or will some first draft, be posted on the website?
Well, when your minutes are finished, the attachments to the minutes and all that should go up on the website.
Okay.
So it'll be that soon.
Is there any other old business?
I just want to say, just in sort of a practical way, if you could just email that to Claudia, so she would have that for the minutes, yeah.
And I want to take this opportunity to thank the subcommittee for its fine work and really quickly coming up with these recommendations. Any further old business? Hearing none, we'll move on. Is there any new business before the board? All right, then.
Mr. Chairman, at our last meeting, an additional matter was identified. As you know, we have a significant problem with geese in our public parks. And we are asking several of the boards to get involved in this discussion, and we'd like the Board of Health to evaluate the health effects of the excess goose population and the goose scat that is flowing over our parks these days.
Do you, as you know, this board does not meet during the summer.
Yeah, that's fine.
Do you have a timeline in mind?
We would hope mid-October, like after your October meeting, to hear from you, so that we give you September to start talking about it. And
I'll work on that, on geese poop, goose poop.
Excuse me. Ms. Wishner has volunteered to serve on the subcommittee, and I will, as usual with these matters, draft Dr. Donato to work with you on that. And
we also have a resource, the Department of Agriculture, I believe, I don't know if it's set yet, but they may be coming in to do a presentation to the Board of Commissioners regarding geese control, so they may also have information that'd be useful for you all.
Do you know when that might be?
No, but I can make sure you're notified.
Thank you.
That's what I was going to ask when I saw the commissioners' meeting, because they're coming down, and the more information, rather than people doing double work, if we have a resource, that'd be terrific. Thank you.
I recall that many years ago, Sunoco undertook the task of trying to round up the geese, and the geese were rounded up and shipped out. And by the time, I think they were even banded, by the time the team got back, the geese were back in the pond over by Matson Ford. So it's a difficult task.
We did the similar thing in Radnor
Yeah.
about 20 years ago.
You're probably having a little more luck with the dogs that patrol the ponds.
Well, what we've found is the dogs do a very good job until they leave. And the ducks, the geese go across the street, and as soon as they leave, they come back.
But they're saying that swans, if you put swans in the pond, so I'm looking forward to hear if that could possibly work. The problem is so many of our high school fields aren't near a pond, so that will not help that situation. It'll only help where there's water. But it's the old thing, nature tends to win. So we'll see how that goes. But thank you for sharing those resources with our board.
Is there any other new business for us this evening?
Not specifically new business, but an announcement. I know many of you are long-term Radnor residents, and we received word that former Police Chief Mo Hennessy passed So there'll probably be an announcement about the time of the viewing and the funeral.
Okay, let's move on to the public participation portion of this meeting. Is anyone here who wishes to speak on any of the matters we've discussed this evening or any other matters to bring before us? Seeing no hands raised, no one rising out of their, nope, there we go. Don't be shy. Would you state your name and...
Yeah, Joan Capuzzi, I'm a veterinarian. Yeah, my only question is the enclosure for the chickens. Will it include a run? A lot of the coop designs include a run. So you have, the coop, which I think you were recommending 4x4x3, and then most
That
of
would
the
be a minimum.
designs-
That would be a minimum.
Okay. And then
What we're
there would be
requiring
one
is a
in
minimum,
addition.
so I guess the person who
Attached.
keeps the chickens would be responsible for figuring out whether they would have a run attached to that.
Okay. Great.
But you're recommending, right, that there be a
Yeah,
run?
I'm recommending a run. See, the thing that confused me was the enclosure will be 2 feet above the surface of the ground, and I assume the reasons being to prevent ground contamination from any possible, pathogens like salmonella. But then if that's the case, will there be a run where they're actually on the ground? Will they have contact with the ground with the coop design you're recommending?
But because are you saying for the sort of physical and mental health of the chickens, they need that? Is that your point?
Well, it's kind of good for exercise. There are
Right.
health-related issues if they don't get enough exercise. But they also like to pick around on the ground,
So then,
pick at grass.
so do you have a suggestion for how to balance that with the health concerns of them being on the ground? Is there a way to, I don't know.
I mean, I personally don't think there are any real, maybe theoretical health concerns. I think it's more theoretical. The issue of salmonella. I think salmonella is an issue of, the hatcheries where the chickens are kind of crammed in coops, and stressed chickens get salmonella overgrowth, but non-stressed chickens don't tend to. And so I see it as more of a non-issue. If the run is being cleaned out on a regular basis and any waste disposed of, then that would sort of take care of that.
I mean, I don't know if there's salmonella on the ground and it rains, do the salmonella, would they possibly get in a water supply, or does that,
No.
not happen?
No. Not likely. But I was assuming that the reason for the coop being at least 2 feet above the ground, that was the thinking. I wasn't sure.
I think keeping it elevated facilitates keeping the area under the coop clean.
Okay.
Okay. My impression is the coop is where you coop the chickens. You keep the chickens. Regardless of the run, I would assume that the minimum we're asking for 3 chickens are these dimensions, and that they be elevated. I think the issue of a run is probably something that can be discussed.
Okay.
And maybe an amendment here. But we're mainly concerned with clustering the hens in one area, how big that area should be, and we felt it should be elevated to facilitate cleaning.
Okay. Great. No more questions. Thanks.
Any other public discussion, any items? Hearing none, we're going to move on to a very pleasurable part of our annual meetings. This June meeting brings to a close the great service we've had on the part of Claudia Cardamone, who is a Radnor High School student. Rising Junior, I think. Is that correct? And she has served as our intern for the past year and has really done a lot of hard work for us along the way. So at this point, I'd like to ask Ms. McCarthy and Ms. Wishner, and in fact, all of the board members to come before this podium. Around, it'll still be on, right? Okay, so we'll do this. We are, as I said, very grateful for your year of service to the board, and I'll read this Radnor Township Board of Health Certificate of Appreciation to Claudia Cardamone. In recognition of your dedicated service to the public health, safety, and welfare of the Radnor Township community and volunteering as the intern to the Radnor Township Board of Health for the 2012-2013 school year. Please know that your work is appreciated, and we thank you for your service. And it's signed by Elaine Schaefer, President of the Board of Commissioners, myself as Chairman of the Board of Health, and Mr. Robert Zinkowski, the Radnor Township Manager. Why don't we move out from behind this podium so Mom can take a photo. Congratulations. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I don't think I could have done it without you. Thank you. Could have done, yes.
Well, that concludes our meeting for this evening, and as I've indicated before, the Radnor Township Board of Health, unless an emergency arises, which will necessitate a meeting in either July or August, or both, we will not be meeting again until September, and our next meeting is here in this room on September 16th, 2013 at 5 o'clock p.m. This meeting stands adjourned.